So, welcome to another episode. I mean, this is the world where we live, and in this world where we live in, we haven't been able to work out how to get the audio equipment to work properly. My apologies on that. We'll try better next week.
We are getting there eventually.
Yeah, baby steps, right, John, baby steps. So, look, I've said this several times in previous podcasts if you've been listening for quite some time. Many thanks for the support if you have, but I do not actually personally believe the world is a bad place. The world where we live is a wonderful place. There is less war, less crime, less poverty than there was 100 years ago. The living standards of people are always increasing, and these are the best of times that we live in right now. That said, even in the best of times, even in these times, there's always a few things to complain about, and that is what we are going to be doing tonight. But hey, look, don't write us off as decrepit old whiners, because I am under absolutely no illusions. We are under absolutely no illusions that no matter how much we complain about certain things, no. I love being alive, I love living in New Zealand, and I love living in the 2020s, in this wonderful time that's so much better than any other time that's preceded it.
Things have never been better than they are right now, and they continuously get better from here on out as well. It's just the way that things are going to go. We do make progress as humanity in general, and we do actually, in the long run, gradually increase everybody's standard of living, and we make everything better. And I second exactly what Jared has said. Things have never been better than they are right now, and they're going to be better tomorrow, and they're going to get better after that. Having said that, we're going to talk about 3 topics tonight, plus a quick fire round sort of at the end. So we're going to briefly touch on the US elections because, dear God, what on earth is going on over there? We're going to look at sort of the sneaky Jacinda tax increases that are sort of coming before the end of the year, which won't affect most of us, but they're still pretty sneaky nonetheless. Not really happy about that. And then we're going to touch on some quick fire topics right at the end to sort of cover off a few things that have happened in New Zealand politics this week that are, let's say, interesting. So, US elections. What on earth are they doing over there, Jared?
Well, I think for a start, look, I understand that Trump's a fighter. I think we all know this. He does not like to give up for any reason whatsoever. You know, he wants to get out there and win. However, the more the days drag on, the crazier the speeches of his lawyer, Rudy Giuliani. What a fall from grace that was. You know, America's mayor and everything, and now he's basically a laughingstock. And the danger is that the more Trump goes down this path, the more he looks like a sore loser. And look, at the end of the day, look, if he wants to contest the election results, good on him. Absolutely. We need to open everything up and make sure there wasn't widespread voter fraud or anything like that.
It is part of the democratic process. That is the whole point. Like, it is in the Constitution. It's written here for a reason. The rules are available for this purpose. I just think it's time to call it.
Well, absolutely. And that's the thing. And I have to bring up the contrast. So, Trump goes to court and contests the results like a grown-up. When Trump won over Hillary, the Democrats and a lot of their supporters went out on the streets, were flipping cars over, were setting buildings on fire, were yelling "not my president" and acting like a bunch of kids. So there is an element of maturity in what Trump's doing, believe it or not. I mean, certainly the way he behaves, you know, you wouldn't think
as hazardous to see,
but certainly in the actions. You know, going to court is the sensible way to do it. But that said, look, we're not talking about a small sliver of margins as in Bush v. Gore in the year 2000, or even Trump versus Hillary in 2016. Biden won fair and square. Now, we can discuss all about what we think is wrong with America with so many people voting for the Democrats, despite everything they've done. But look, at the end of the day, that's the way it is. They, the people, the American people, have spoken. And look, on the one hand, I'm tempted to really criticize Trump for this, but for the last 4 years, the shoe was on the other foot. It was the Democrats trying to delegitimize his presidency through any means necessary. So really, they're the ones who are a bit hypocritical if they're saying that he shouldn't be acting up.
Do you think this divide is sort of healable, though? Like, it's gotten to this fractured point where it's causing quite a lot of problems. And I don't know if that divide is actually resolvable in general. I think it is. We're seeing it get to a point where no matter who wins, no matter what happens, 50% of the population is going to resist. How would you see whoever's the next president healing this divide between the two factions?
Well, I think it would start by actually reaching across the table and trying to find some common ground with people who disagree with you. And I said this during our election special a few weeks ago, that the greatest problem facing America is they are not the United States of America. That's the advertising. They are the divided states of America.
Agree.
You have Democrats and Republicans. If you don't agree, you call the other side a Nazi or a bigot or what have you else. But really, a successful president for America today would be able to reach across the aisle, find some common ground, and actually work with people who fundamentally disagree with you.
What kind of common ground?
Well, workable solutions that try not to alienate people. And by
Can you give me an example, though? Because I think we're really reaching that point where I don't know if that's achievable now.
I have to agree with you. I would like to think of an example, but you can think of any major issue, abortion rights, develop a...
You're not going to get agreement on abortion rights.
Well, you're not going to get agreement on anything. There was one. It was the coronavirus relief package. It added $10 trillion to the U.S. national debt, I believe. That had cross-party support between the Democrats and the Republicans. The cooler heads, libertarian folk, were saying it was a horrible idea, and it is.
I agree. It is a bloody awful idea. It puts a bandage on the problem. It doesn't solve anything.
But the thing is, that's the point. I can't think of a single issue facing America that somebody could bring everybody together in agreement.
So what does that mean then?
Well, I hate to say it, I don't usually use profanity on these videos, but America seems to be well and truly fucked.
I agree. And I don't know how this is going to be resolved. This is a pretty serious worldwide situation in which this rift has developed over not just Trump's administration, but over a vast number of administrations stretching back probably to the Clintons, I reckon. Probably to Bill Clinton. I think this is when that started. Do you think that's a fair assessment?
Actually, I do, and I think it's mainly what happened after. There are many critics of President Reagan and his administration, and a lot of it's fair enough. There were scandals, Iran-Contra, overseeing the AIDS crisis and everything like that. But I think Reagan's message was one of optimism, of America being the greatest country in the world and being able to do anything. Now, you look at, certainly the current incoming administration. They seem to think that America's a terrible place, that it was founded on racist ideology, basically on evil, and when you have so many people who have absolutely no faith in their country, how are they supposed to work for a better future when they don't believe it's even possible?
They can't. I think you've hit the nail on the head. The American exceptionalism of the Reagan era has gone. It has been eroded primarily by the Democratic presidents, a little bit to the Republicans, but there haven't been that many. But it has been eroded by the Democratic presidents and the Democratic Party. And it is, well, everybody knows that I always have a brag about Marxism, but it is one of the phases of installing Marxism in a regime that is not currently Marxist. It's the demoralization of your public. You demoralize your kids and students, and you make everybody think that the country is an awful place to live. And this always happens, and they do it all the time. And that is what has lost the American exceptionalism in a way that people now hate the country that they live in. And they want to not fix it, not make it better, not improve it, not reform it, They want to destroy it. And that's what we're seeing with all the protests of whatever flavor it is. I don't actually care what the titles are for any of these protests. And they're not even protests. They're riots. They're full-on riots. They're burning down the country that they live in. But they also don't have a solution for what they want to do afterwards. I haven't heard anything from Biden or Kamala Harris or the Democrats about how they want to fix and reform and improve the country and build it up and make it better. They say build back better, but what they mean is destroy the entire country and make it into a communist utopia. And I'm not even kidding. It's an actual communist utopia. That's what they want. Except you cannot do that. It is just not possible to have some people being slaves to the majority of the population, which is what communism is.
And that's the thing, I mean, build back better, so they're the ones trying to call for unity at a time like this. Well, they spent the last 4 years telling anybody who cared to listen that if they were a Trump supporter, they were a bigot and a racist and a contemptible individual.
A basket of deplorables, one might say.
Basket of deplorables. Yeah, that was one of the more famous,
Thanks, Hillary.
if not the most famous reveal of a Democratic presidential candidate inadvertently revealing what her base and what their supporters do actually think about the supporters of the other side. But, I say again, how do you get anything done? How do you get any progress when you cannot harness any support from half of the country? And it's entirely their fault because they've spent... So how many... I last saw it when they'd counted 71 million votes for Trump. 71 million. And there's such an irony. It's like the old saying, when 10 men tell you you're drunk, you better think about lying down. They can't get out there and say, we are the way, the truth, and the light. It's 71 million people, they're all just a bunch of bigots. No. It's completely ridiculous.
They're both saying it about each other, though. There's no difference. They're just saying it about each other. And we get into this bizarre, ideologically name-pointing, blame game rubbish. And when you're at that stage, I don't think it's possible to make progress. I think you can make progress in any kind of direction when whoever you're talking to, which we're talking about 50% of voters here. Sure, not everybody in the country voted. But we're talking about 50% of the voters in America. It's a tie. This is the worst possible outcome for democracy ever. And what it's actually doing is proving the communists right. It's proving that democracy really doesn't or cannot achieve any kind of outcome where you've got some kind of clear path in these sort of situations. And this is exactly what the Marxists are hoping for. They hope that you turn up, have the exact situations where they engineer in the first place. They engineer them this way so that these things happen, so that the popular voters split in favour of themselves, but the electoral college is split in favour of very in middle in the tie. That they do this on purpose to make sure that everybody turns around and looks at the democratic system that they're in, goes, wow, this is not working. And then we get people calling for more and more authoritarianism, more and more hierarchy, more and more centralized power to try and resolve these issues. And that's not the right way to go about it.
I think democracy will probably manage to refashion itself and survive, and I say that because I saw a very interesting debate. It's the Monk debates that they hold, and there was one with Steve Bannon, and I can't remember who else, but basically you think of Steve Bannon, he is the populist godhead, if you like, and the subject of the debate was this: the future of democracy is populist and not liberal. And I think that liberalism, or rather what it's devolved into, leftism, has caused a lot of division, and populism's sort of risen to fight back at that. Democracy will survive, it will just need to reshape itself along ideological lines and try to bring in people who it's so far left behind in its pursuit of liberal and leftist ideals.
I think we need to decentralize power. I think the problem with all of this, both on the left and the right, is our continual need to centralize power in the hands of a few. as opposed to localizing power in the hands of the many. And I think that is the core fundamental underlying issue with all of our democratic systems worldwide. We ask the government to do things that the government has no business doing, that shouldn't be involved with, and that does very poorly. And that is a completely retarded way to go about this, and we should not be doing it. We should be decentralizing decision-making power as much as we possibly can. For bigger things, down to the local levels, and then you work your way up. You want the individual to have as much decision-making power as they possibly can, and you want the government to deal with only the really, really high-level stuff. Do we go to war with this country? Yes, no. Right. That's all they should be doing. That's all they should be doing. That and infrastructure. Everything else, leave it to the individuals. Otherwise, you get nothing but problems where governments get more power, more overreach, and try to control everything about your life. And it doesn't work. It provably does not work. That's what we're seeing right now.
Well, time to go back to tribes. I can't wait.
Oh, no, I just think we need to move on. We need to move on from this. Decentralized power, non-aggression principle. Let's go. The next thing that we sort of want to touch on very briefly, which is kind of related to that, is Jacinda Ardern is quickly going to sneak through the 39% top income tax bracket for people earning over $180,000 a year in before Christmas. And I've seen a couple of petitions and things out from various people that say this is a bit undemocratic. My slight problem with that is it's not really, because she got a 50% majority. So we all knew that she was going to do that before the election, and 50% of the country voted in favor of that. And while I'm very, very much opposed to increasing in tax, which she won't even make the money off the tax anyway, because all those people can afford accountants, and you just put it through various other vehicles to avoid the taxation in the first place. So good luck to Jacinda. You ain't going to get money out of any of those people. But that's not the point. It's a little bit weird to sort of force this through, but I also disagree with the other side that are claiming that it is undemocratic, because it's not. 50% of the country voted for her and knowingly voted for her. So is this actually a sneaky tax increase, or is this exactly what we as New Zealand asked for?
Well, they're the party of social investment and not economic growth, and all that implies. It isn't undemocratic. They are the government. They have a majority, as we've already mentioned. They can do this. The problem that arises, I think, and this view is held by a lot of people who own businesses, who employ people. We have had probably the hardest year in terms of running businesses, in terms of the economy, at least since 1987, some say since 1929. So raising the tax brackets is basically kicking a lot of people while they're down. It's sad to see that we have a government that doesn't really care very much about economic growth and doesn't seem to realise that in all their talk about social investment, the state of the economy directly impacts how a lot of people are doing in life, their wealth, their standards of living. And if you make it far more difficult to do business, if you start taxing people for succeeding, and God forbid if you're hiring people, we want a piece of tax. It's a wealth tax by any other name. Look, you hurt the poor more than anybody else.
I agree, and that is sort of the point going around. Let's say the more right-wing side of the parties is that, but the claim is undemocratic. But what the real claim is that you're punishing people for succeeding and doing well. And it's very weird to find ourselves in an environment where so many of our fellow Kiwis have very, very low incomes, very high costs. We live in a massively high-cost society with incredibly low incomes. And what we are punishing is doing well. What we should be encouraging is doing well. What I would like to see is people's incomes increasing. I would like to see us become more productive, be able to make more money for everybody, all the way down the scale. And this is not trickle down in economics. There's nothing to do with that. This is not trickle down at all. I want to see everybody's wages and salaries come up because they can be more productive in general overall. I want to see the top people go up. I want to see the bottom people go up, the middle people. I want to see us all move up together.
And I think the Americans sorted out, and with Trump's Tax Cuts and Jobs Act in 2017, oh boy, that's going to be repealed soon, isn't it?
Yep.
Biden's executive orders, they won't be written by him, but you can bet they'll be coming. But anyway, moving right along, one of those was for the first, I believe, heck, I haven't looked at this in a long time, so forgive me if I get this wrong, but I believe it's the first $14,000 in America you earn is tax-free. So say to enact that in New Zealand, we'll say the first $25,000 of anyone's income is not taxed at all.
What is it at the moment? Like 10.5?
That's right, it's 10.5.
Yeah, and something that's quite low. Something the best way that you can help the lower socioeconomic brackets in New Zealand is not by increasing the minimum wage. That doesn't really help anything. It just puts them out of work. But what you should do is give them more tax-free capacity to earn. I don't have any problem with that. They don't pay any tax anyway. It doesn't really matter in the grand scale of things. They pay such an insignificant amount of tax. Make it 20 grand, make it 30 grand. Move the tax brackets up with the rate of inflation. Money's worth less and less all the time. If you want to help them, the best thing that you can do is stop taking their money off them.
And that's the thing. It's also very misguided. I mean, you get these people, they love to go out on the streets with their signs, don't they? You know, people are stealing all the. If you're rich, if you're a CEO, if you have a lot of money, obviously it's because you stole it from people who have none. The richest, the top 10%, they pay something like 42% of the taxes.
It's huge.
They pay their fair share, as they love to say, anyway. They pay more than that. So to increase that even more and try and say that they're somehow stealing or they're bullying other people or they're profiting off the labour off the backs of everybody else, it is absolutely ridiculous. It's a myth.
It's factually wrong. It's incorrect. And it doesn't work. Jacinda said before the elections that was going to collect the next of $500 billion a year. My ass it is. You'll be lucky if you scrape past the $200 to $300 million, if that. Why? Well, if I can pay 30% through my trust, you think I'm going to pay 39%? You think I'm going to tell my accountant to sort that shit out for me and move it across? Yeah. Cool. There are new trust regulations coming in which do make that stuff a lot harder. But there's a lot of established family trusts that can also look after that right now anyway. What's the business tax rate? 28%? 28% flat tax. Okay, so how much money am I going to put through my business? Why would I pay 39 when I can pay 28? I'll just leave all my money in my company and just spend it from there. And it's all legitimate business expenses because you can go out and have dinner with friends and family and things and whatever. And you should go and do that stuff. And you should encourage all your friends to start business so you pay less tax. You're not going to get the money, Jacinda. It's not going to be there. They're going to hide it in all the little vehicles like they always have. If you actually want to get money from those kind of people, you need to make all the tax rates the same. You need to make the company tax rate and the trust tax rate both 39%. Good luck with that one.
I mean, to conclude this segment, it goes back to what I said right at the very beginning. I couldn't stand those "We Are the 99% protests. Look, you complain about people with more money than you. Okay. Put it on a scale. Are you talking about you versus everybody else in your age group? You bring the boomers in? How about everybody in New Zealand? Okay, maybe you're not in the top 30% or whatever. Let's expand that a little bit. Let's compare us with everybody in the world. If you have more than about $10,000 compared to everybody in the world, you are in the top 10%. Stop complaining. You are actually doing significantly better, and more importantly than that, you are living in a free country with so much opportunity, and you have the chance to advance your position in ways that so many people in communist dictatorships, in countries that are ruled by the sultan,
despotic dictators,
benevolent dictators,
despotic, benevolent ones are okay.
regardless, like, we are in the top 1%, depending on the scale that you're looking at. So really, this whole bagging on the rich and for trying to punish people to succeed, doesn't it just discourage more people from succeeding? We want people to do better. That's the whole point of life.
Stop focusing on money. That is the takeaway from this. Stop focusing on money. Stop focusing about how much more other people have than you. Stop about how much. Think about the other people that have less than you. Stop focusing on it. No matter what you do, no matter how you structure it, no matter how many controls you put in place, no matter how many laws you make, no matter how regulations, there are always going to be people that are better off than you, and there are always going to be people worse off than you. Do you get to go and do things with your friends and family? Do you get to go and spend time with your friends and family and relatives and people that you want to spend time with? Do you get to go and do that? Stop focusing on work all the time. Stop focusing on money all the time. Do the things that you want to enjoy and stop being jealous about what other people can do. Do you really need a Ferrari? Seriously? A Lamborghini? Do you care? Maybe. Get one then.
And yeah, to conclude that, I mean, I certainly don't care too much for money because money can't buy me love. Thanks, Paul McCartney.
Well, I've got some maths that can prove it can, but we're not going down that path. Anyway, the next thing we want to sort of move on to is sort of the quickfire round, just to wrap everything up tonight. So Mike Hoskins has had a bit of an interview with Stuart Nass and I can't remember the other guy's name from National.
Mike something like that.
Whatever. You didn't get elected. Okay, right. So they were sort of talking about the housing crisis in New Zealand, and that people call it a crisis. I don't know if I describe it that way. The house prices are really high compared to our incomes and are increasing at what is an ever-increasing rate, which means that even if you start saving deposit now, you're unlikely to ever be able to afford it, which has resulted in only people who've got wealthy parents being able to help them into houses. We've talked about trying to reduce house prices. We've talked about trying to slow the house prices growth. We've talked about trying to make money cheaper so that people can get better loans and get into houses and into the first home. It's a big problem. What do you do with this information right now? What do you do on the back of Labour trying to control the market? Do you think it's possible?
No, certainly it isn't possible. The governments can't control housing. They've tried many times before. There's too much bureaucracy and they're too tied up in red tape to be able to do it effectively. At the end of the day, it's supply and demand. And I don't see the situation getting any better. Look, New Zealand is now more desirable throughout the entire history of our country as a destination to be a tourist, to come here and live, to immigrate here. And we are looking down the barrel of another 20 or so years of more people wanting to come to New Zealand, which we will absolutely let them with open arms because our economy isn't doing very well without them. And that will increase the population growth at a rate that, heck, the National gets such a bad rap for letting the infrastructure, for not boosting up the infrastructure while they increase the immigration, but I don't think anybody could have.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. That's the key right there. You want to sort of supply and demand. Everything is supply and demand. It always is. The economics is settled. It has been for 100 years now. Labour, Jacinda, you're never going to watch this. But if for some reason you come across it, the way you solve the house prices is to make more land available for houses to be built on and leave the rest up to the developers. That means Judith is right and you need to build infrastructure. Fibre, electricity, water, power. Do it.
And that's the thing, you give enough land, we might be able to stop all this horrible infilling that I can even see from where I'm sitting here.
We're looking at it right now.
Yeah, these giant, massive apartment blocks going up in what were very leafy and nice suburbs and quiet streets.
With no car parks, so people can't transport themselves around. They have to park on the street, which are all yellow lines everywhere. You can't live in Auckland with a car because we don't have the critical mass to have the public transport that works. What are you doing? You're building all these train lines that cost billions of dollars to ship a small number of people from the suburbs, miles away, to the CBD, during 1 hour of time a day and then 1 hour again in the evening, that's bloody insane. Build a proper fibre network. Get people working from home. Stop congregating people in these large buildings and bloody CBD and start diversifying the workforce out to other areas. We don't need to be in offices.
Have you ever had a job where you could ride a bike to work?
No, never.
Neither have I, funnily enough.
My sister does, though. She rides an e-bike to work every day.
Okay, so 1 out of 5 people that come to mind that don't so far?
Well, I can't. I have to wear these kind of clothes. There's no way I'm riding this and riding an e-bike. I can't ride a bike to work. It's not possible. Granted, most of my work now is from home, which is excellent. But that's not a practical solution for the vast majority of people.
Well, I just love cars and I always have. But the second quick-fire topic, which actually takes several minutes, the COVID vaccine. It's on the way. Hopefully it works. And hopefully enough people take it.
I hear 90% effective, but I'm not going to be the first to sign up to that. I'm by no means an anti-vaxxer. I approve of vaccinations to a very, very large degree, and I will always argue in favour of vaccinations. For vaccinations that work and they've been through the proper process. These ones are all rushed. And I've heard some dodgy stuff about them. I largely consider it to be a conspiracy theory, so I'm not really interested in paying attention to what those sort of fringe people are saying about them. But I do take their point. There is no circumstance under which I would accept vaccinations to be mandatory. That is not something that I'm willing to accept. If you're an anti-vaxxer, I'm not on your side. But you also have the right to refuse to be vaccinated or have your kids vaccinated.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, look, I support mandatory vaccination for measles, mumps, rubella.
Why?
Because it's a horrible virus that's very contagious, and when you talk about the anti-vaxxers and everything not vaccinating their children, hey, the kids, they don't have a choice. I'm sure they would rather not have those horrible viruses attack them. But vaccinations, we can go into detail with that with another topic, on another night.
I think so. I think so. But would you take the COVID vaccine?
Yes, I would.
First?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Fine. There's no way I'm doing that first.
And I would do that because I want to get the bloody borders back open, and if we can do this, if enough people take it, if that means that our economy can get back to some semblance of normal, then, what's next? If we all get it, then we can say, look, if you come into New Zealand, you're getting that, you're going to test negative, and you're getting that vaccine.
I think I'd rather just have COVID, thanks.
I wouldn't.
It's really not that bad. We've got all the medical facilities to take care of it. I am not in any way afraid of this virus in any way, shape or form. The vaccination, cool. You bring it here. You give it to a bunch of people who are all on board with your weird whatever, want to take the vaccine. Fine. Let them do it first. You go and take it first and see how it works out for you. And if I get a large enough sample size that proves that it's effective, sure. Include it in my normal flu shot next year. But otherwise, I'm quite happy to take the risk, because the risk is basically zero.
Topic number 3.
Oh, what are we looking at here? Tourism. Well, that actually kind of leads into your point before. That really does lead into your point before. What are we going to do with the tourism? So I heard the other day that we're sort of looking at $1 billion a month in lost revenue from the tourism industry at the moment. So that stacks up every month. That's insane. That is a lot of money that is not coming into our economy, and that is causing this massive downturn that we're seeing at the moment. Given that our dollar's actually doing quite well, but nobody can come here, so it doesn't really matter.
Damn it, who's the tourism minister? I don't remember. Anyway, he came out and he basically said what they're going to do now, what he's called upon the tourism industry in New Zealand to do, is to chase the high-value tourists.
I did see that.
These are the wealthy folk from overseas who are coming down to spend more money. Now, fair enough, if you want to get some more money out there, sure. However, should you choose to chase the high end of the market, I don't want to hear any more complaining if the economy ever crashes. There was $72 million given to the tourism industry, and that was given because they chased the wealthy overseas market, jacked up the prices of everything else, and suddenly, during lockdown, when we couldn't get any overseas tourists, the average Kiwis, you and I, and you guys can't afford to go on the AJ Hackett bungee or anything.
$130 to jump off a bridge? Are you bloody kidding me?
So, yeah, by all means, chase the wealthy area, but I never want to hear about another government subsidy for those short-sighted idiots who decided to do that in the first place. We should not... Look, for all the problems with freedom campers and things like that, we need backpackers. We need people to come to New Zealand and enjoy it for what it is. We're a very friendly culture of people, we're very accommodating, and we need things to be cheap and accessible to the masses. Because look, you're going to get people without a great deal of money coming in here, hitching rides, freedom camping and things like that. They're the ones who are going to go back and get their mates to come as well. That will boost the economy.
Let's be fair, it's an economically very dangerous thing to do. You're putting all your eggs into a very, very small basket. The amount of people that can afford hundreds of thousands of dollars for holidays is very, very tiny. The amount of people that can afford thousands of dollars on holidays is huge. And I second what Jared said. You want to go after this market, you want to jack everything up, right. I never want to hear another single complaint out of you, tourism people. If you're going to charge that, fine. We've just bailed you out to a massive amount of money. And quite honestly, I actually, from this, because you've been bailed out now, I think there should be strings attached. I think anyone that has received bailout money from this now must, by law, provide discounts to New Zealand citizens because we just funded you so you didn't disappear. There can't be this giving of money out all the time with no strings attached. You want my money, I want strings then. That's the way it's got to work. You want to go after those high-value tourists? Good. That's a good thing. I kind of like that because they'll be better quality and they'll look after the environment. There'll be less of them. It'll damage our environment less. But you want to charge me $130 to jump off a bridge? Or what? $300 to jump out of a plane over a nice scenic part of New Zealand? Okay, cool. Where's the New Zealand rate then? If I bring my passport to you, where's my discounted rate for saving you, your business, your family? Right? Do I give you discounted rates? Do I get bailed out when my business goes down? Well, not me specifically, no. And a lot of people in New Zealand haven't. And a lot of people have sort of gone under after they've not been able to pay for their businesses. Wage subsidy exclusive, it doesn't matter. A lot of people are finding it very hard, but they're not getting help. Where's the help for them? It's very one-sided to those people that have got the largest amount of power, that can grab the most power, the most amount of votes from the government all the time. So our money's going, we shouldn't bail out businesses like this unless there are strings to say, you must now support New Zealanders that bailed you out.
Oh, you're a xenophobe because forget all of that nonsense. It's absolutely right. Look, compensation for the taxpayers of New Zealand who did something. Oh, by the way, I want a discounted rate next time I go to the races.
Yes, please.
Well, hey, you let Winston Peters throw them a bit of money they didn't need, didn't you?
Say the same thing about them as I said everywhere else. You're getting government money, I want strings attached. And that applies to literally every band of money that the government ever gives out. This is not free money. This is not just to support you and your family and whatever you're doing. This is money that I've had to sit down and earn, that he's had to sit and earn, that you've had to sit and earn, and they're giving it to special interest groups.
And I think the most important thing about that is if they make it cheap enough, if they discount us for being New Zealanders, then we can take an actual holiday. And maybe if we take a holiday, then we won't feel so disenfranchised. And these episodes might get overall a bit more positive.
Or even better, we might see how beautiful this country is and actually give a shit about protecting the environment that we live in. There you go, James Shaw. There's a Greens Party argument for you. Go and make that one, mate. Right. Last topic. I'm going to give us only a couple of minutes because it's actually a bigger topic that we want to cover a little bit later, and it's a bit more complicated. But there's been a little bit of talk about the Maori wards in sort of New Zealand at the moment. And I believe there's two kinds. Do you want to sort of give us a brief overview about that? Because you know a bit more than I do.
No, I don't think. But basically, this was first it came out in 2018. They had a referendum on it. In fact, a referendum was forced because they were going to push it through without public consent. And I always thought it was funny that they had a referendum and this was seen as a problem. It was seen as racist that there was a referendum and the population voted no. Well, it's a little bit strange because I would have seen the fact that some politicians could undemocratically foist their personal beliefs upon a public who did not want them. I thought that would be more of a problem than actually putting it to a vote.
So what we're talking about, the Maori wards here, is basically the same as having the Maori general electorate roll, except for local, regional council elections, those sorts of things. And what it allows the Maori population in the area to do is to stand and vote for people that are more representative of them in that area. And the idea is to get more Maori representation in those areas. And I think Mike Hosking made a really good point today, is that there's no reason, there is nothing in any legislation anywhere that is preventing any person of any descent or any race or any immutable characteristics from standing for election in those areas anyway. And the countervailing argument that seems to be that even though that is the case, we suffer from a lack of representation, particularly from Maori interest groups or Maori people in those areas. And I think Mike raised a good question, which I'm going to ask again now. Why aren't Maori standing for elections?
You know, I'm really not sure. Perhaps they feel they have no chance of success, but there are many Maori interest groups. They are well funded. They can put a candidate forth, advertise, try and get as many people as possible to vote for them. And when you think about it, a lot of these local elections, you get so little engagement from the public anyway. I think in some of them 20 to 25% of the population are even enrolled to vote. So I don't really think it would take very much. Hey, if you want to field a candidate, do some campaigning on his behalf, their behalf, well, be my guest. There is absolutely nothing stopping them. And look, if you're going to class anything based on race, regardless of whether it's determined by the politicians who dreamt it up as being positive or negative, it's racist. Simple as that.
I agree. I don't think there's need for this race-based politics. I understand the intentions behind it is to get more Maori representation, and that would be great. But the only way you're going to get more Maori representation if more Maori vote for more Maori candidates. Or, look, you might be Chinese and want to vote for your Maori candidate. Not because they're Maori, because they're good. So do it. Why does their race matter? Why does their race matter to Maori? Maybe the Maori do find a Maori candidate more appealing to them because they're more similar to them. Great. Vote for the Maori candidate. But I think what you'll find is that some of the population will do that, but those are usually the disengaged voters anyway. So they don't vote. But the people who are politically engaged in those areas, they're going to be looking very carefully at what the candidates say and what the candidates do and what their policies are. And they don't care about what your race is. Those are the people that vote. So if you look at that kind of spread in the background of what politically engaged voters look for, it's not race. The people that don't vote look at race, but they don't vote. And then they get up and go, but there's no Maori candidates. But you didn't vote. Well, you had your chance to vote for a Maori candidate. There could have been one standing. Why don't you stand? That's my question to all those people that say that. It's like, okay, you've got Maori descent, you've got Tongan descent, Samoan descent, you've got Chinese descent, you've got Indian descent. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me at all. Are your ideas good? Do they represent the population that you want to represent? Because you're representing them. If they do, stand for election. Get up, stand up, do something about it. Put your name forwards. Do you win this time? Maybe not. Maybe you can win next time. Maybe you can encourage other people in your community and stand up and be a leader in your community and show the next generation that people can stand for these positions and they can have a good go at it. Go and do something about it instead of just sitting there and whining.
And that's the thing. I mean, it's doing it by the book, and then it's trying to craftily change the rules and change the book so you can do it anyway, even without consensus from the public. I think that's the problem. I think that's abhorrent. No, we don't want any group being able to do that. I don't care what their race or their ideology or any of their ideas are. No, it has to have public support. That's the way democracy works. Simple as that. End of discussion as far as I'm concerned.
We're going to do a bigger topic on this at some stage in the future when a bit more information comes about them, because I think it's quite a nuanced and very interesting topic. I'd actually like, if we've got anyone that's on the other side from us, that would be a great time to have them along
Absolutely.
as well, to sort of give a different perspective, because we're, I think, a little bit too close on our perspective in that. But anyway, I think we've probably waffled on for quite long enough. So that has been another episode of The World We Live. And we look all forward to seeing you the next time we can get our gear together to actually record properly, and hopefully that's Wednesday next week. We're trying to be regular. It's a little bit difficult to start. Take care, guys. See you later.